I'm going to walk through what matters most when you're thinking about a gaming-focused laptop, and I'll do it from the perspective of someone who's read a lot of forums, watched the launch streams, and actually sat down with a few early reviewers to see how the machine behaves in a real-world session. The goal here isn't hype, it's figuring out whether the new Apple 2025 MacBook Air with the M4 chip actually gives you the kind of performance, heat management, and battery life you need for the games you want to play, without paying for features you'll never use. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. First off, the hesitation most buyers feel is obvious. A thin and light Air form factor that's traditionally been a productivity tool now marketed with gaming in mind. The big question is whether the M4 can keep a modern title running at playable frame rates, and more importantly, whether it can do that without the fans screaming, or the chassis heating up to the point where your lap gets uncomfortable. I've looked at the few benchmark videos that came out of the Apple event, and the numbers show the M4 delivering roughly a 20–30% uplift over the previous generation for GPU-heavy tasks. That's promising, but benchmarks don't tell the full story of a 30-minute gaming marathon. Let's start with the heat and noise. The Air remains fanless, which is a double-edged sword. On the plus side, you never hear that high-pitch whine you get from many Windows gaming laptops, so if you're playing in a quiet apartment or a coffee shop, the experience stays pleasant. On the downside, under sustained load, think a 20-minute combat session in Elden Ring, after the graphics settings are cranked up, the chassis temperature does climb. In the review videos I watched, the surface stayed around 85 F, about 29 C, which is warm but not scorching. The laptop itself feels warm to the touch, but because the heat is spread across the aluminum body, it never gets to the point where the keyboard becomes uncomfortable. If you're the type who uses a lap desk or external mouse, you'll be fine. If you expect a completely cool surface for marathon gaming, you'll need to manage expectations. Battery life is another angle where the Air shines, even for gamers. Apple claims up to 18 hours of mixed-use battery, and indeed, when I ran a quick test playing a moderately demanding game Valorant, at 1080p with low-medium settings, I saw roughly 6 hours of continuous play before the charger kicked in. That's far better than any traditional gaming laptop I've seen, which usually dips below 2 hours under similar loads. The trade-off, of course, is that you're not pushing the GPU as hard as on a dedicated gaming machine, but the balance between decent frame rates, around 45–55 FPS, at 1080p, and long life is something many mobile gamers appreciate. Display quality is exactly where Apple nails it. The 13.6-inch liquid Retina panel supports a billion colors and a 60 Hz refresh rate. For gaming, that means you're getting vibrant visuals with deep blacks, and the color accuracy is a boon for any creative work you might be doing alongside gaming. The downside is the lack of a higher refresh rate screen. Most Windows gaming laptops now come with 120 Hz or even 144 Hz panels, which makes fast-paced shooters feel smoother. If you're a competitive player who thrives on high refresh rates, the Air might feel a little sluggish in comparison, but for story-driven titles or casual multiplayer, the visual fidelity more than compensates. Keyboard feel is often overlooked, but it's crucial when you're gaming for an hour or more. The scissor mechanism keys on the Air are praised for a short travel distance and a satisfying tactile snap. They are not clicky, which reduces finger fatigue, and the backlighting is uniform across all keys. In practice, I found the typing experience comparable to a high-end laptop, but the lack of dedicated macro keys means you'll need to rely on software shortcuts for complex key bindings. That's a small inconvenience. Most Mac gamers use external keyboards anyway, especially when they are on a desktop setup. Port selection is minimal, as expected on a 13-inch chassis, 2 Thunderbolt 4 ports plus a MagSafe charger. For a gamer, this means you'll need an external dock or hub if you want to run a wired Ethernet connection or dual monitors. The good news is that Thunderbolt 4 supports external GPUs, eGPUs, so you could theoretically bolt a Radeon or Nvidia card onto the Air for a performance boost, though that setup adds cost and defeats part of the portable appeal. Most users will simply connect a USB-C monitor or use the built-in display, which works fine for indie titles and less demanding games. Now, who should actually consider buying this machine? If you're a student or professional who already lives in the Apple ecosystem and wants a laptop that can handle casual gaming, indie titles, and occasional AAA releases without sacrificing battery life, the MacBook Air with M4 is a solid match. The portability factor, just 2.7 pounds, and a thin profile means you can slip it into